Hello and welcome to episode 163, part 2, which we weren't expecting to do, but we are. So, yeah, I was going to try and sneak another episode out.
Kind of
And,
sneaky second part sort of bonus episode, but I like
well, there are a few, like, there's 163 is what we were on, but we started on 0 for starters, and there are a few
Right.
extra in there, so I wonder what we are on. It's probably 170 something, but hey, I haven't numbered them that way, so tough.
I like this. Just throwing a few curveballs and let's make it sort of extra episodic. And
Yeah,
it's fun.
because we
It's modular.
because we planned it that way.
Oh yeah, obviously these are all
Oh,
highly
for
planned out. When we
sure.
were discussing this back in 2020 and sketching out the years ahead,
Yeah, it's all going to script.
classic us.
Yeah, when we planned that COVID and everything.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. In hat time. Here we go.
Indeed. Okie dokie. Well, as usual, Element Games. If you're getting money for Christmas and you want to spend it on cool, super cool toys, please go and use our link for Element Games, and you will help support the show, which is rather lovely. I think there was an expansion in the heresy community of people using the Element Code link.
with the extensively.
It's kind of filtered it out a little bit, which is fine. But the way we produce the show does cost money. So we are very appreciative of anyone who chooses to use our links. Some people use certainly my Element code as well, but
Nice.
yours is in the show notes. What's yours again? Can you remember it off the top of your head?
Oh my god, no.
HOW.
That'll be in there. Funnily enough, I'm on Element as we're speaking. Looking at potential Secret Santa gifts.
Well, there we go. So yeah, mine's on there as well. But if you want to give to Howard, please do so as well. We're appreciative of any of that. Thank you very much.
Certainly, yeah. It's always nice to have that there and incentivizes. But yeah, it's all part of the fun, really.
If you found it yet.
No, I'm trying to log in. I've forgotten what my blooming thing is, but yeah, I'm not. You got to warn me about these things. Come on.
No, you've got to be more on your toes, my friend.
I think that's fair. I like that.
Indeed. So yeah, with your wads of cash that you get for Christmas, and you want to start a brand new army, please feel free to support us. We do appreciate it. It can be a bit glib when we're doing it, but yeah. Hey, and as we mentioned in the last show as well, if you want to tell people about us, that's completely free. That's great. If you want to leave us an iTunes review or a Spotify review or a review wherever you are, then that's great as well. If you just want to listen, cool, that's fine. But we have all those, and we have Patreon if you are, super incentivized for some reason to support us, then you can do that as well. But we just we thank you for your listens as we get to the end of another year of doing this. It'll be it's over 8.5 now for me. We're getting there.
Well, and with heresy going from strength to strength, who knows what's coming? There's plenty to talk about.
Indeed, there absolutely is. In fact, let's jump onto that. We might as well do a little catch up. It'll mean there's less on the next episode. But shortly after we talked about what they're going to do for Salamander's helmets in our continuation of helmets, we do have Salamander's helmets and shoulder pads.
Particularly good ones, I thought. Particularly good design style and generally
and
very well received.
Do you know why? Good design style? Because they only loosely fit the Mark 6 shape.
Well, indeed. But I think quite a clever use of that silhouette, the beaky silhouette.
Yeah.
Lends itself well, doesn't it, to this?
Although the top knot, whatever one, is such a bad angle that they've taken that photo straight on. Like, it just looks terrible, and I'm sure it doesn't look terrible, but it looks terrible there. I like the unadorned ones. I really do. I think they've got a good mix again because it's not dragony, but it's evocative of that kind of thing. And this is almost what I suppose they can never do it with the Spaceballs, but this is kind of what you want. Like, You want that representation. You want to be able to know what they're pointing you towards without them saying dragon. So
I think that's fair.
yeah, I do like them. Although someone was pointing out that these shoulder pads are only good for Mark 6, which is what they're there for.
Mm.
But until they make the reverse shoulder pads, because you want that facing forwards, don't you? Really? So it
Yes.
only
I mean,
goes on the
yeah, that's
right
true.
shoulder pad. So you want them to make another one of these, or for the left shoulder pad, for the different marks.
I've had that problem before. I often find that with the resin upgrade kits, is they don't look ideal next to the plastic counterpart, which has obviously got that slightly finer rim or whatever. Yeah, that can be tricky.
Indeed, the head though, the bear head is awesome.
I think the whole set's great, but I completely agree. A lot of the bear heads, I'd say more than
More hits than
haven't.
misses.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I was trying to go with that. Those have worked out very well, I think.
Indeed, that's pretty cool. What else did we have? It was they're bringing back some resin stuff, don't they? That was about all.
Yeah, one of their big sort of days recently was the what was the big releases of a Sunday evening was all the kind of ultramarines.
Yes,
Because there was quite a lot of
which is
those.
cool.
There was quite a big range. Yeah, it's ideal if you're keen to round out that collection. Yeah.
The other thing that is heresy related is a new Aegis defense line.
Indeed. Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. To go with the Imperial Guard release. Sorry, Astra Militarum release.
Yeah. What? Like, I get it. You know, some people don't get the styling to this. I'm not that bothered. It's a defense line at the end of the day. It certainly looks more like a defense line than the old one in terms of it. At least some bits of it got some height and angled, and like the amount of people who were like, "Oh, this is so terrible compared to the old one." I'm like, really? I mean, the old one wasn't great.
I was going to say, I think it's superior to the old one, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I can see there's certain style aspects of this that you might not like, but let's not pretend the old one was like one of GW's greatest kits,
Oh, nowhere
because
near.
it really wasn't.
No. And it also, there was a lot of moulded on extras that I'm not convinced were always helpful.
Yeah, what I like is the little details, like the broken one and the bits with one with like little bits broken off of it and stuff like that. Like it looks, yeah.
Arranged
I
in
think
such a
I
way that
prefer this.
you could move, you can choose to have that or not, particularly if you have multiple sets and things. I thought it was a nice little release that they put out, a nice update on something they'd done before.
Yeah, I think it's all right, and you know, it's not like you won't be able to get the old ones in some form or another if that's what you prefer.
And there's plenty of third-party varieties like that.
Oh, exactly. Exactamente.
Of all things, yeah, there was a lot around of those.
Cool. And the other thing that's happened between last episode and this, or part 1 and part 2, is we had a Black Library preview. So this is all for 2023. We only a couple of things that really are relevant to heresy. Well, we have the End of the Death Volume 1 confirmed for Black Library Celebration.
That was very exciting that's coming, and we can start all getting worked up in time for that.
Yeah, with Dan talking about it. I don't know. So he was talking about hitting all the beats and then throwing stuff in. There was a couple of bits where I was like, "Oh, he said that in a funny way," but then kind of made it all okay with the next kind of thing he said. I think it was about the Emperor choosing to get involved, and I was like, and then like not long afterwards he said, and of course Horace tried to bait him out with the thing, and it's like, well, with lowering the shields, and that was like, in theory that's all because the Ultramarines are coming, and Horace knows he needs to win it now, or he's going to get chased off. But there was a part of me that was like, how much are you changing, Dan? How much are you changing?
Well, how much do we not know?
Yeah, or how much is unfamiliar
I
or
have
whatever.
confidence here I particularly in Mr. Abnett's has usually got the chops to be able to put that together in a way that's going to be pretty satisfying.
So what's interesting? So we don't we had the reveal of the cover for the End of the Death Volume 2, which is Horus versus Sanguinius, which looks cool. It's just a new version of a duel, which is fine. Looks like those two are fighting each other though, not Sanguinius, fighting someone else. More information to follow on that next year. Fine, cool. But if we read the back of the End of the Death Volume 1, the walls have fallen, it's the end of the death, blah, blah, blah. After 7 brutal years of civil war, 7 people, 7. The Emperor must die. Now at the final hour of the final day, the Emperor rises. With him come his angel, his praetorian, and his captain, all determined to enact terrible vengeance. Yet the hope is slim, for the War Master sees all, knows all, and the ultimate victory of chaos is at hand. There is no way out. So, does that kind of suggests to me? Well, the interesting thing is that's the blurb for Volume 1. So that suggests that we get to on board the Vengeful Spirit by Volume 1.
You think that's where it could cut?
Yeah.
At some point. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Otherwise, what's in
Why
Volume
would you talk
2?
about him with him come? Yeah, with him come his angel. So Sanguinius, Dawn, Valdor. Now, obviously, we've got other things going on to fill out that book. But then for Volume 2, what if we're starting at them on the Vengeful Spirit? Like, how much is that going to take up? Or is it, I suppose, if we classic down, we'll get like a bit on there, and then there are lots of other stuff that's happening in the background, things like that. But it's just quite interesting to see how to try and work out how it's going to be all broken up. What is interesting is they refuse to state that the second volume is the final part of that book.
Yes, I was thinking that. It is still slightly ambiguous. They haven't stated
however,
it's 2 parts.
Yeah, however, so Dan, we talked about it months ago, that Dan announced that the book he was working on had to be split into 2 books.
Well, yes, but as you say...
Could it be 3?
That was months. I'd say it's bordering on over a year ago now. That was...
but kind of timescales of getting these made, shipped over, ready, means that wouldn't be far off. Also, the timing, like again, if there's 3 books and we're already on the Vengeful Spirit, my only thing that suggests to me that there won't be 3 books is book 2 would have to be very full of perpetuals / something going on somewhere else, to the point that you're losing track of those guys. And I just can't imagine that you would cut away for a book and not have Sanguinius the Emperor Horus featuring it that much to get to a finish point, because the finish. So, and it does depend how they define the end of the Siege of Terror, which was previously defined by them, by Forge World, by Black Library, as the point at which the Emperor takes the Golden Throne. We know that Dawn's going to rush him there because he's worried, so that can't be a huge amount. Obviously, there'll be like epilogue or what have you. We'll get, it won't be so clean cut, I'm sure, but it does mean that if that second book isn't the end, that's a lot of story about not a relatively small amount of time.
We don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't see it picking up where you can't pick up where Echoes leaves off. There's going to be overlap.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it could have quite a lot of concurrent elements going on, but I agree with you. That's a lot of page count. But then it's a very complex end, I suppose, kind of.
But I say for Volume 1 to talk about, like they're talking about the final hour of the final day, the Emperor rises, he's gone to the Vengeful Spirit. or he's on his way there. We're at that point. To have 2 more books under that, I think is unlikely.
But why be ambiguous about it then?
Because it's Black Library, it's Games Workshop. It's just because it's what they do.
Because it's in their nature. Yeah.
What if there's a novella between them?
What? That's part of that book?
Or not necessarily part of that, but to just a novella between them that is something going on at a similar time. I mean, they just sometimes they just love not to tell us stuff. At the end of the day,
I think it's that. It feels like it could be that.
Yeah, they're like, when we give more details out, which might even be around the Black Library celebration, which I would hope it would be actually, because you want to know. Then they'll be like, yeah, the final part of the final part is out. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I can't. Yeah, it's such a. It would be quite a big deal for them to. I would have thought to go to more. I mean, it was quite a big deal for them going it beyond the 8 that was originally planned and turning that into what was now 9, or what we think could be 9. To then take that on even further, that would seem to be quite such a big step. You would imagine they would have said something.
Although I bet there is an element of them that are like, oh, I bet someone's gone, we could end it with a trilogy.
Which is kind of appealing. That's the weird thing.
Yeah. And just as
with a trilogy.
Not even to make, yeah, exactly. Not even to make money, just because they started it with a trilogy.
Yeah.
I say, even if it's a big book, which was the biggest book of those? It would be Saturnine, wasn't it? Saturnine was a big book.
Huge.
For what Black Library tend to put out. 2 Saturnines worth of book. Maybe. I mean, there was a lot happened in Saturnine. Maybe I'd lose my pound if I put it on there, but I'll stick it on there. It's 2 parts.
Yeah, I think it's the most likely. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. What else are we going to have here? So, I mean, there's lots of 40k stuff. Typically, very little Age of Sigmar stuff, I'm sure. Although bad Loon Rising, fair enough. I'm sure Michael go visit Tracker Words for his thoughts about. Oh no, there's Last Valari as well. And Blight Slayer. Okay, so
actually,
a whole 3 books. Armageddon limited edition. Oh yeah. Oh baby.
what
really cool.
That is, yeah.
Go and read Angels of Darkness as well, because it's classic, if not a little. Don't know how well it fits in anymore. But hey, Cypher is the new character series book, which could be interesting. I suspect it will be more 40k focused, but there might be some interesting stuff there. And it's not French.
It's because they've developed quite a bit of his character, haven't they, in the current.
But it's still Cypher, so.
Yeah. Oh, there'll be callbacks. Cypher. There'll be callbacks. It'll still be adding context to that arc. So I certainly think that'll be interesting.
Indeedly doodly. What else do we have here? We have Warhammer Fest, some interesting stuff around Warhammer Fest. So we're going, aren't we, both you and I?
We are.
And we were trying to break down whether it was worth going for the mega ticket.
No,
not risking it.
Because you sort of look at it in face value initially, and you think, well, look at it presented, and you think, well, that's insane. Clearly not. And then you start reading into it, and you're like, well,
tempting.
Well, actually,
yeah.
Is this justifiable? Hang on a minute. Is there something whispering in my ear? And when you start looking through it, because of what it wasn't simply experience things, you were going to be walking away with something. God knows what that might be, but it was something that you did have a thought about, at least.
Indeed, but we managed to pull back, both of us, from that, because I don't think it's a stupid idea. But
however, I look forward to seeing those who did.
Golden Demon being sold out.
Yes, very popular.
What's interesting is I know someone, I think it's Rob actually, he's bought a ticket for like the Saturday, but not for the Sunday, because and my thinking is he knows he's not going to win, but he's going to be able to pull your model out. Or sorry, he's bought a ticket for the Sunday, not the Monday, or something like that. are you going to be able to pull your model out? I suppose you can. I don't know. Like, but are you going to get any feedback on it? Or are you going to get judged? I don't know. It's
Yeah,
a strange one.
how does that work? How do you enter for a day?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure he's necessarily read it properly, because you do have to get your entry in one of the 2 days and then be around to pick it up on the Sunday. So it does make it
I
a little
think
bit. You
when
have to spend 40 quid
they'll be doing
plus
the
the.
announcement on the Sunday, won't they?
Is it no, it's the Monday, isn't it? Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah, the event that isn't the. I would imagine.
No,
No, okay.
no, it's Monday.
They've made it
So
clear
you
that it's on
have
the
to be
Monday.
there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be there on the Monday, basically, because there were a few people. Dan Collister particularly, who was like, it's 40 quid to enter plus the Golden Demon ticket. It's too much, and you have to be there 2 days, because you can't enter on that last day because they've got so much judging to do. The size of the event means they have to have the stuff in before the day that they need a whole day of judging, basically, which I think is fair. Um, and if people don't want to pay 40 quid for that and the time, and as we're finding out, the one major issue with this venue is hotels are not cheap around there, partly because a lot of people booked up hotels as soon as before tickets were even sold.
Sensible.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, it's not necessarily the cheapest place to stay if you want to
No.
be close. If you don't drive or what have you, train station nearby, so you could get the train in and stuff like that.
Which
But
depending on where
it's
you're
more
coming
money.
from, has
Could be,
trains are
yeah.
not the cheapest form of transport.
No, I mean that you could stay a couple of
I
miles
see
away
your
near
point.
on the train line
I see
and
your
have a
point.
small train. But again, it all adds up,
It
doesn't it?
certainly does,
So
and I mean, Manchester being what it is, it's one of the UK's major centres, so it has costs
yeah,
associated with it. Of course, it would.
and for those, yeah, not in the UK,
Cool. Yeah.
we don't have many like affordable big venues like that. We don't have, like in America, all through various parts. You got whole cities that are built around exhibition centres, like the downtown or Indianapolis, their exhibition centre, it has skylinks to 5 hotels, and it's right next to the baseball stadium, which gets used for Gen Con,
Mm.
and the pubs and all that are used to having that. We just don't have those facilities. We don't have. Land is precious
Yeah.
in these
Yeah.
places. So, if you go out to the NIA in near Birmingham, it's middle of nowhere. So then you haven't got the hotels. Like it's a horrible trying to find somewhere. Whether they found the right place or not, I'm sure they'll decide based
Mm.
on how much money they make, whether it covers everything. But they have announced, because they've sold lots of tickets. They got they've got 2 day events going on and stuff, which is fine. But then you won't be able to do anything else because you'll be busy playing those events, which is a shame because I wouldn't mind playing them. But they've just announced today, so they've got community paint and take. So
Oh, okay.
some free miniatures, which you can then paint and you can take home, and they'll feature a community display of each day's miniatures as well.
Okay.
So you can go there for a bit. They've got live hobby demos as well, which seem to be free ones. Bring it and click it. This is interesting, and is something I've seen at a couple of Warhammer events. You'll get fantastic photographs of your miniature collections.
Oh,
So you
that's
can take along some
interesting.
miniatures and
Okay.
have them professionally photographed. So if you want, bring along an army for one of your tournaments, or you just want a beautiful photo of your favourite individual miniature for your scrapbook.
Mm.
Which I've seen Blood and Glory. Ben Curry did that for Warhammer once, which was really good. I've seen a couple of other places do something similar.
That's
But I
quite.
like that.
I
If
like
you,
that as an idea. It's not
yeah,
one that would be immediately obvious, but actually, it's quite appealing.
no, yeah, because taking photos is not easy.
No.
Usually most people don't own a second camera now, so it's
Yeah.
their phone.
And who really has the core? I mean, even with the light boxes that you can buy, and which is a thing, and
Yeah,
not everyone's going to
exactly.
go out and bother with those. Those help considerably, but still, it's like any professional photographer. It makes a major improvement.
Exactly.
Mm.
And then mega armies on parade.
Ooh.
A special event just at Fest. You can enter your army for judging in the spirit of friendly competition, whether you're playing in an event. Excuse me, playing in an event or not.
Okay.
So yeah, that was cool.
Not bad. Okay.
And then so they've then got some gaming events. These are, I assume these are all free to play. So in the earliest iterations of Warhammer, you had a games master to run each game. Think Battle at the Farm from Rogue Trader. Multiplayer show up and play scenarios return to those days of yore with custom games run by games masters on theme tables that have all the models you need. No need to bring any of your own.
I was
So this is
about
going
to
back to
ask that.
old games days.
Okay, I was about to ask that, but that's quite cool.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, back in the day, games day, they did it. What the early fests, they had a couple of come and play games, but back in the day, they used to use the gaming club network and also stores to run. Like I remember, like the one with a huge Skaven cannon, and you had to try and like storm this thing to stop it firing, and just crazy game scenarios, huge ones that ran all day. This seems like smaller ones that they can then rotate through people, which is a better idea, to be honest. But that sounds cool. They've also got a hangout between bouts at the pop-up Warhammer board gaming bar and cafe, where you can grab a hot drink and play a selection of our best board games, including Warhammer Underworlds.
Okay.
So I might take a warband up.
They do, because that is they've got quite a little collection now of these board games, particularly if you go for the ones that are only available in a few territories. And actually, having been to a few other wider conventions, shows and things, those board game cafes, which is Tabletop Gaming Live, does a very good. The one that's been Ali Pali does a very good.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
Oh, yes,
very,
they
very,
do.
very
I keep
good. It's really good, and it has an excellent board game cafe, which, particularly over a longer event like this, I mean, we've commented on this before. The last fests, the 2 days makes them quite relaxed, and you've got a bit more time to explore things rather than the 1 dayers where you think, oh my god, I've got to pack everything in, and you're rushing around. You're not going to have those chill out times. Whereas if you've written off 2, even 3 days, having some time in those board game type cafes is a good way to break up the otherwise can be quite intense series of events going on. Yeah, I like it.
Just sit down, have a drink as well, like have a rest, play a board game while you're resting. You're still involved with everything. You're right. You've got everything from Trolls in the Pantry up to whatever, Blood Bowl, the card game, Blood Bowl, that kind of stuff. So that's really cool. If bigger Warhammer games are your thing, you can make your way to the gaming area for demo games that cover a variety of our biggest games like Warhammer Age of Sigmar and 40k. So if you only play Heresy or you haven't played another game in a while, then jump on, have a look at that. And then they've got the laser tag, and what else is there? All the licensed stuff's going to be there, including video games as usual, so you get to do that. And then you can they've got a variety of interactive areas, including an AR scavenger hunt and some themed carnival games.
Okay.
Which is cool. Warhammer Fest will be huge, 6 times bigger than the last.
6 times? The last one was big.
Yeah, it was big. So that's kind of stoked me a little bit, because we're probably going to do 2 days, aren't we? Come back late. That following night, just too much time away from.
Well, yeah, with new little ones, that's it's a slightly different prospect. I would probably be all in on the 3 days. In days gone by.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. When I was much younger.
A year ago.
Indeed. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's kind of made me think. Oh, actually, yeah, I'm looking forward to this even more now.
This does seem like it's always tempting to say, oh, they've had the time to prepare this. Well, not necessarily, because if they haven't made the decision to do it, then committing to something like this is quite a big deal. But it is something that it feels like they've put quite a lot of effort into making lots of extra things over and above what they've done in the past because they've got the extra capacity. I hope it's rewarded with it selling well.
Yeah. Well, I think it has sold well to a point. They've sold out of Golden Demon tickets, which means you're also getting at least 2 days, which means you're getting a weekend because it's cheaper to buy a weekend pass. So you've got all your weekend pass, and we know that your Neils, your Matts, your Henrys, maybe not Henry so much, but your Andy Wardles, he'll spend 75% of his time standing around, talking paint. Like, he won't be off doing other stuff, but that's fine. That's cool. But yeah, hopefully they do it well enough that people come back from it and like, that's awesome. But yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm looking forward to it.
Be a good event.
And it's and you know what as well? So, just to let you all in. So I'll be leaving. I'll be working. I don't have any like spare holiday next year. In fact, I have minus spare holiday next year. So I'll be leaving work, coming home, driving up, picking you guys up, road trip up to Manchester, crash that night, and then head on early in and figure it all out. But it's kind of old school in a way, which is pretty cool.
I mean, that's what I've done in all of those events. It adds to some of the energy somehow to it. It certainly adds a bit of excitement to the day.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Okay, right. I think that's about it.
Is that all the releases and things, news that's going on? I think it's a bit tenuous to say that the Black Library submissions window has opened, even that its successor chapters.
Oh yeah.
Which successors chapters are mentioned of sorts in the Heresy. I feel it's tenuous at best, though.
We're not going to start going down that road, but we have. If you are a budding writer, we have old episodes about entering these submission windows. I cannot remember what number they are. In fact, then a couple of them are unnumbered, so you can go back, and if you are interested in writing, you can go back and get an idea of how they work and things you can do and kind of hints and tips. Did we have Dave Guyver on? I think we had Dave Guyver on talking about his experience, because he was found through submission window. So yeah, there's some good stuff there. But on top of all that, we also got some FAQs.
We certainly did. Now, I would say they were a bit of a surprise. Is that fair to say? People were waiting for them, but I wasn't expecting them when they came.
There was no kind of they're coming. But again, GW should be doing this, and it should be coming out fairly soon after books come out. It's kind of an expectation for me that FAQs are going to be more regular, not regular, but more regular than they were. But yeah, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. One thing one of the Forge World people has said recently, when there was the usual, I went on a couple of Discords and it was just the usual rubbish, frankly, and oh my god, this is terrible, everything's GW is so lazy and all this. There were two things. One, for an FAQ, so there are certain stuff that comes up which the team become aware about or happens in their own games, and that will likely get pushed through. Sometimes the question has to be frequently asked, because if one person has a problem with something, it's probably not a problem. They also, every change they make has to be considered how it affects everything else. So the bigger that change is, the more playtesting or whatever. Doesn't mean it's going to come out perfect, but there is a process to go through, and then it's just time and release schedules and things like that, and when it gets into them and whatever else. So sometimes you won't get an answer for something because there's something down the line which will change or affect it. So there are reasons why certain stuff does get it, certain stuff doesn't. It's never going to be perfect, because nothing ever is. But they seem okay from what I've had a look at. Should we start with the Liber Imperium?
Well, should we just give an overview? Oh well, first of all, it was interesting that they named the developer who's dealing with it, which I thought was interesting. They mentioned that it was, or rather, a person who described what was happening with these changes is Heresy games developer Ben Webb. Not a name I'd heard before.
So
Cool.
no, I know Ben. Yeah, he's part of the team, part of the rules writing team. So it's dealt with as a whole.
Yeah, so it's all part of that.
He was just the name they put out for that one.
Fine, which is great. I think it's cool that it's just that you got more people being involved in this. What is quite a big thing. So what have we got? We got an update to the Liber Astartes and Hereticus. They both got updated.
And Imperium, and a rulebook, and then we got a Solar Auxilia expanded units as well. I think the best place to start actually would be the rulebook.
That feels that's probably the best place to dive in. Cool. There wasn't that much to that, but it was what was there was quite significant.
Yes. Reactions in the shooting phase, return fire. Mm-hmm. Essentially, you must declare your reaction before any dice rolled. That's basically what it means.
Yeah. It's clarified what they meant with that previously.
Yeah, the previous one was
absolutely explicit, whereas the previous version was just it made it possible to interpret it that the returning fire unit
and this is
did so before the firing unit got to fire.
Yeah, this this is one of those fundamental things where I suspect and kind of I believe, but this happens with other things anyway. Everyone on the team knows what they're trying to achieve, and it's impossible to take that out of your head when you're then reading the book. So things that are ambiguous to someone else aren't ambiguous to you because you know intent. And it's very hard to stand back and read it completely, with subconscious bias, effectively, which is, you cannot get rid of subconscious bias. It is always there. But yeah, this is a cleaner clarification of that in 4 paragraphs.
Yeah, it's a wordy version, but I mean, that seems to be what is required to make it absolutely explicitly clear.
Yeah. It is.
Along the same lines, it was clarified that Shrouded who gets to use Shrouded when they might otherwise be exempt.
Well, yeah. Well, I was going one at a time.
Oh, okay.
Because I was just reading through that, and it was talking about pinning. So, which happens, you basically ignore pinning as part of that, which is again potentially not how it works with the revised edition. Surge moves. If your charge has failed because there are no targets of the charge remain on the battlefield, no surge move is made, which is, interesting, but sensible, I think. And it might come up later on for other stuff. Damage on passengers, clearing up what you do when you're survive the passengers where you're putting them.
Thought that was,
which is a sensible thing to do.
Not one I found had come up, but that's fine. And clearly it had.
Yeah, and this is part of the thing, isn't it? It's it's what's frequently asked. Battlesmith. Is that just clearing up that they can't do 2 things? Because there are quite a few questions asked around, like, what constitutes a shooting attack, what constitutes a blah, 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 can I do this and not fire one of my guns? Which is always a bit of a funny one. Where are we? Change the first sentence to as a big sentence. Instead of firing a weapon, and this is, cannot shoot any weapons or use any other abilities. Yep, absolute clarification on Battlesmith, which is sensible again, because 99% of the time your Battlesmith can only fire 1 weapon anyway, but there are rules that allowed you to do that. Shrouded. Yep. So basically, if you have a special rule.
It's
2 parts. No, because this is the shrouded bit, isn't it?
Shrouded, Shrouded is a thing that gives you a cover. Doesn't give you a cover save. It gives you a save. You don't get it.
Damage mitigation
save. You don't get that if you are fearless. That didn't interact well when you had someone like Korax, who is fearless by virtue of being a Primarch. So therefore, he didn't get his shrouded rule. The two were incompatible. This clarifies that that is an exception.
Yeah, I'm just having a little look. Shroud rolls may not be taken against melee attacks, against attacks with ignores cover special rule, or for models excluding models with a Primarch unit with a fearless special rule. So they've added that into the first paragraph. Yeah, they're tidying up the thing they then did, aren't they? So they're basically it's working on what they did and then resolving the issue that caused.
With something as large and complex as this, you get some unintended interactions, which is what they're clearing up. Fine.
Indeed. And then we get on to the actual FAQs. So, if a model which has joined or been allocated to another unit using an ability which is used instead of making a shooting attack, does this prevent the rest of the unit from making a shooting attack? No. Fairly straightforward to me, because you're choosing to nominate that shooting attack as being used for something else. But clear. Good. If a model has more than one ability that can be used instead of making a shooting attack, can it use more than one of these each time it's eligible to make a shooting attack? No. So this is particularly like Cyberthurgy and Battlesmith, I think, is the two, because the wording on one of them used to be shooting and then the other one was like, yeah. And I think it was a bit of a stretch because it's instead of, rather than can forego a shooting attack, once you've used instead, you've kind of lost whatever you were doing beforehand. But that's nice and clear, which is good. Can a modifier to the hit roll affect an attack made by a model which is making snapshots? Yes.
I thought that was a very useful clarification, because I think that might be an issue where if you've played multiple games and multiple editions of a game, there's certainly an edition of one of the games where you absolutely couldn't alter snapshots. So to have that clarified that you can here, I think is quite important.
Yes, I certainly think last edition you had to have a rule which gave you a different snapshot. And there's ballistic skill 1, can only be modified by special rules that specifically state that they affect snapshots, along with any other restrictions. Can they modify to the hit roll affect an attack made by a model which is making snapshots? So that doesn't override that. It just doubles down on it. So you still have to. You can't just give them +1 to hit. It still has to refer to snapshots as well.
Oh, that's interesting, because that's not how I read that FAQ.
But no, because that FAQ doesn't. There's no errata which changes this.
No, it's not an errata. No, but can a modifier to
so
the
actually
hit roll
that might be worth
affect an attack made by a model which is making a snapshot? Yes. Suggest that to me that's any modifier to the 2-hit roll, not a specific kind of modifier to the 2-hit roll. But you're right. The logic of your thinking is absolutely sound, I think.
So let me just reread it. Shot can only be modified by special rules that specifically state they affect snapshots, along with any other restrictions. If a special rule doesn't specifically state that it affects snapshots, then the snapshot is resolved at ballistic skill 1. No, hold on.
That's fine. It's resolved at ballistic skill 1.
That's modifying the ballistic skill. Yes. So you could. So to modify the ballistic skill of a snapshot, you need a specific rule that allows you to affect snapshots. However, if you have +1 to hit, you can modify the actual roll. So that's good clarification. And these are the things that sometimes you've got to read back a few lines.
And it's important about it's important about reading and really absorbing what's been written and not making certain assumptions, which is super easy to do because of something as complex as this, where you think, well, a 2-hit and your ballistic skill surely is one and the same thing. Not necessarily, as in this case. They are very heavily linked. It is your ballistic skill that gives you your 2-hit roll, or determines what it's going to be, but they can be affected in different ways, and they can be affected each separately and specifically. Oh yeah, it's worth clarifying here. I think that's quite a significant one, because there's various Legion traits that affect that.
Yeah. So,
I'm looking at
absolutely.
you, Imperial Fists.
Nice, easy one. Yeah, indeed. Nice, easy one next. When mounted on a vehicle, are weapons without a strength characteristic, such as graviton weapons, treated as a battle weapon? Yes. Again, they're the thing that slipped through the gap, so that's good to know that you can't just defensive weapon those, whatever it's called. Can a unit which has disembarked from a model with the assault vehicle special rule make a charge on a turn in which the model with the assault vehicle special rule has entered play from reserves? No. Designer's notes. Note that some rules, such as Deep Strike, Assault of War with Flanking Assault granted by Outflank Special, override this restriction as noted in their rules. So if you just roll on from reserves, you can't charge unless the rule that allows you to roll on from reserves, either Deep Strike, Assault, Right of War, Flanking Assault, etc., specifically allows you to do it from an assault vehicle.
I quite like that thematically, even though it's sort of tricky that you've got two very similar things, basically identical things, that operate differently, kind of. But I quite like the idea that you can only do it, given that it is inherently very powerful,
if you're geared up to
if you've really gone for it. You're like, no, we're really committing to this, and that's what allows us to do it.
We're planning this. Yeah, because each of those have negatives attached to them potentially as well. So there are specific
Which is
things.
what I like as a balancing feature. Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. I'm still working my head around deep strikes and augury scanners and like what potentially can be done around that. But that's an interesting kind of symbiotic relationship between those things. Okay, these next three ones all refer to the same thing. So, if a unit fails a morale test as part of a hold the line reaction, does it fall back before the charge move is made? Yes. If a reaction has been made in the assault phase, the charging unit and its target are more than 12 inches apart, can that charge be successful? No. If a unit falls back after failing the morale test as part of the hold the line reaction and the roll to determine the charge distance is sufficient to reach that unit, does that unit get an opportunity to regroup? No. So, I choose to hold the line, I fail, I fall back before the charge move is made. If I am now further than 12 inches from you, the charge is not successful. If I fail to fall back the 12 inches and you catch me with your charge move, that unit is wiped out.
It's quite a sequence of events, but quite powerful.
However, so this is technically the hold the line reaction. Technically, this is how it worked right from the start. I wonder if that's the way they intended it to work right from the start, but that's the way they've gone with it. It's interesting. It's big. So a lot of people, there was an initial reaction from a lot of places were like, "This is terrible now," and I'm like, "This is pretty useful now." As a gaming point of view, so they're like, okay, you run and then they catch you and then you completely die. Okay, well, a lot's got to happen there. First of all, you've got to fail your action to hold the line. Cool, whatever. You then fall back, which is 2d6 inches for most stuff. Yeah. Now, the chances are, well, that unit has to be at least 1 inch away from you anyway. So your 2d6 is facing their charge move of 2d6. Might be modifiers involved with those. But they have to score 1 more than you if you're 1 inch away. If they're 5 inches away, they've got to score 5 more than you. So a lot of the time, you will get away. If you're over 12 inches apart, the other thing is as well. So you got to remember when you choose to hold the line, the charger has already declared the charge and rolled the dice. So you know what they've rolled.
That's quite significant. So, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So if you're 6 inches away from me, there are, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hold the line. Oh, I failed. What did you roll? A 7-inch charge. Well, I'm automatically out of the way. Now I could look at it. There could be a really dangerous fight, and that could be, I really need to hold the line here. You're 4 inches away. You've rolled a 10 to charge. Or if I fail this, hold the line. That unit's dead. I might have to weather it because I can't afford to take the risk, particularly if it's night fighting, the unit's got fear, something else, you've lost your sergeant. Like, lots of things can affect leadership as well. If you're 5 inches away and you've rolled a 6, and I can be like, well, there's no negative really to holding the line. I have to regroup and you can charge me again. But you fail, which means you're only going to surge, which means you then have to move up again. Like, you can think about it beforehand. I initially in my head, without having played it, I almost think that charge reactions should happen before dice are rolled. Because they're very powerful at the moment. Say I've got 3 charges on you, and I fail the first one, fail the second one. Well, I'm getting in the third one, so you're going to react. Whereas if I charge the first one, you have to take that gamble. Overwatch is at full ballistic skill, isn't it? It is, isn't it? So, yeah, okay. Are you going to react with that one? On my 8-inch charge where I might not get into you anyway? Because I might not make the others? Like, I think there should be more risk reward in that, because if you do only end up with 1 or 2 charges, well, it's obvious what your reactions then are going to be. So I think that could change. But anyway, that's irrelevant. That doesn't happen. So if you get 12 inches away, they surge because it's not a successful charge. If you fall back and they don't reach you, is that an unsuccessful charge? I suppose it technically is based on the fact, but it was a successful charge until that point, so it then becomes an unsuccessful charge, so they only surge.
It's a weirdly complex arrangement of timings, isn't it?
Yeah. And then what happens is, so someone said, "Oh, hold the line is now a terrible reaction."
I disagree.
I'm like, hold a minute. My Varigir Terminators, which have fear, are pushing up, and you don't want to get charged by Varigir because they go to weapon skill 6 and they're tough and they're cool, and you're like, okay, it's a tough fight. I think they'll beat me. If I hold the line and take the attack away, there's a chance that I can survive it, and then maybe I can bring some friends in. Cool. Okay, no worries. What happens if I fail? Well, if I fail, I run away, and he's again 5 inches away from me, probably not going to catch me. I'm not going to then be locked in combat, which means I then get to shoot the Varigir for another turn.
Because they're
you know what?
likely
I'm going
to
to
be...
hold the. I'm going to hold the line. Yeah, I'm going to hold the line because if you hit me, with a bit of luck, I still be able to survive. But if I fail, and I'm on leadership 7 maybe at this point, and it's a 44%, something like that, chance of failing on a 7. If I run away, I get to regroup, and I get to shoot them more. So actually, I'm going to hold the line in the hope that I fail. And not only do I get to shoot him more, and my unit's not in combat and everything else, but also he doesn't run 2d6 inches and consolidate. He surges. So he's also getting my Varigir less far up the board. And because he's got fear, I might be on leadership 6 by now. So it actually becomes 56% chance. So, and it might be the same with, okay, I'm going to hold the line with this unit of 10 or 8 tactical squad that are left, because you're going to wipe them out. But there's a good chance there's not it's not, odds aren't in my favour, but there's a healthy chance that I fail to hold the line and I get to keep this unit alive, which can then go somewhere else and score. So there is a valid tactical ploy, which is counter narrative potentially, but there is a powerful tactical ploy in holding the line in the hope that you fail in certain mainly because you know the charge move.
I just like the fact that it gives you this level of choice and decision making. It's a lot of decision making to do, which isn't going to appeal, but I think it's quite cool and quite interactive.
As a game mechanic, yes. There does feel, depending on who I'm playing. Like if I'm playing Will Henry or someone like that, cool, crack on. I might do it. If I'm playing Fred at the club, I'm going to try and hold the line with this unit, so I hopefully fail and run away. I'm not 100% sold on that. However, I think, and it is what it is at the end of the day. But I think a lot of people didn't understand the powerful ability of running away. I mean, the good thing is you can't choose to do it, but with snipers out there, with fear out there, with it being dark, you could easily be on a leadership 6 or a leadership 5, like, and suddenly the odds are more in your favour. You don't have complete control. In my head, as I'm kind of looking at and been thinking about it, I think if you moved, much like shooting, if you move reactions to the point they declare their intended action that you're reacting to, before any dice roll, you should declare your reactions. I think because, and partly because of the power of Overwatch. Because if it's one of those things. So say I'm up against interrupters, say, which no one wants to charge, or salamanders with flamers everywhere, right? You're going to or 10-man las cannon squad, and I've got a 10-man assault squad, right? Everyone knows I want to make that charge, and you can wait to see if it's successful. You can wait. You have no pressure on you with other charges because you can see all the rolls coming in. But if I have 3 charges and that one, and I'm making a big deal of I'm going to charge those las cannons, and I fail the first charge, fail the second charge, fail the third charge, well, you haven't used a reaction. Now, if you don't know that I'm going to fail those charges, and there might be a charge over here that you think I don't really want to let that one in, then there is a choice, because you're like, he is going to, if I use my reaction, he will probably charge my last cannon squad, who might survive and might be able to do this. But I also can't let him get this one easily. I have to choose between the two. Whereas, say, if I roll a 4-inch on that first one, don't get it in. Okay, there's no choice. Brilliant. Okay, I'll wait till the last cannons get charged. Or or that person allows you to roll those dice, hoping you don't make them, because he wants to save it back for that. So I think that would help the reactions.
I see where you're coming. Yes, I agree. Yeah, okay. It
I think
becomes more of a
tactically,
gamble.
and
I quite like the fact it's still a choice, but it's a slightly more informed choice. Still not a dead cert. You're still rolling dice for those things.
Yeah, I mean, if I charge 10 tactical squads into 10 las cannons, the chances are most of my tactical squads are going to be dead.
What I mean is, if you're choosing to make the Overwatch accepting, that's a different thing. But I was talking more about the hold the line and having to decide. Yeah.
Oh, the hold the line specifically. Yeah, the hold the line is not as clear cut as that because of the nature of having to roll the leadership test. But I think there are more circumstances.
I think you're right. That's fair.
Than other people than certain people believe, where it's a win-win situation. Well, it's a win if I reduce your attacks. It's a major win if I run away and leave you stranded in the open. You've just got out of your Spartan for the first time to make this big charge into my, could be a really powerful unit. It could be a big unit of Terminators, and you're like, yeah, screw you. I'm off out of here. Oh, did you just get out of your really heavily armored transport? And now you're faced with, these plasma gunners and these other dudes and these other dudes. And I am going to rally next turn, There's a lot of cool stuff. But yes, that is generally I like that. It'll be, and what I'm asking for is an errata, not an FAQ at the end of the day. But hey, it is what it is. Should we jump onto the Liber Imperium?
We got to get through these, and there's quite a lot here. But those are
indeed.
I think those were significant ones which people were expecting, weren't they?
Indeed, I just got rid of the Liber Imperium one. That was stupid, wasn't it? So there are various ones for the Solar Auxilia, which generally are about just clarifying like turret mounted Gravis las cannons and things like that, clearing up side war gear to hull war gear and that kind of thing, removing force from the Calexis assassin because it can use it anyway. Assassins are no longer, Clan Vanus is no longer an independent character. Polymorphine is so. Where are we? Bear with me. So yeah, the Contemptor Achilles swapping out the Dread Spear for a fist and changing some points. Is that... Either way, some
The
small stuff
polymorphine
there,
one
but
was
useful stuff.
a bit of a bigger one, I thought.
The polymorphine one is probably sensible. So I was listening to Lost Legions. I think maybe might have been someone else. But basically, you could, if you're playing Zone Mortalis, you could take a Calidus, just put them in a corridor because no one can come within 1 inch of her, which is terrible. You could still do that.
Goonhammer made the point you could put the Calidus on for 115 points, 125 points. You could put them on an objective. And you can't come within. You could never capture it.
3 inches, isn't it?
Is it? Isn't it? What to contest it? You could only ever contest it. You could never. You could contest that objective.
No, line. It's not a line. She's not line. You could get within. She's only on a 32 mil base. Yeah. You've got to be within 3 inches to contest objectives in 30k. So you can get within 3 inches of the center of that objective.
Well, maybe that's not a thing then.
So I think they've just got that wrong. No, I think I heard something like that.
So that doesn't. But it's a similar issue as the Zone Mortalis.
But yeah, it's a negative play experience.
It's a similar thing as Zone Mortalis, which is arguably more significant.
Yes, because you can just block off a hole, whatever. There's nothing, which you can still do technically. But what they've changed it to now is previously she had to shoot her gun before you could target her. Now it's just make an attack.
Which I think is sensible. Otherwise, she could just go her way through the army, never being revealed.
Within 3 inches of an objective.
So that's just something that they did get right.
So yeah, 32 mil. You're only going to be 16 mil out, 26 mil. Yeah, so you got 4 mil of space that you can actually score an objective in, technically, which is the best kind of rule. But yeah, basically any attack, isn't it? An attack, and you must attack in combat. So still means potentially you can run up. So you can still run up and hold a unit up, which is probably what she's best for doing, is running into a las cannon squad who can't react to her and saying, you're not shooting in your next turn if I survive. You're attacking me. But then can't just be obnoxious doing that to another unit and then another unit, which is very sensible. A good choice there. Updating melted cutters. The one that got me was Tarsis bucklers, which were pretty useless.
Yeah, so that was this made them a bit more interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because the spears are good and allow these are Custodes Venatari, allow them to strike as well as any Custodes on the charge. Bucklers used to be okay, and now they reduce the strength characteristics of shooting attacks made against a unit in which the majority of models have a Tarsis buckler by -2 to a minimum of 1. So bolt guns go down to strength 2, still wounding on 6s, so 5s to 6s if essentially, but certainly things like heavy bolters, which are pretty good. Like the kind of strength 5, strength 6 area is usually AP4, AP3. Can be very good against a Venatari. So that will help a little bit. However, majority means out of 3, if you've only got 1, if you've only got 2 with bucklers, as soon as you lose 1, then you're losing that ability. And if you take off the spear first, then you can still do stuff. You're still Custodes. However, you are losing a lot of your punch. Or you're taking bigger units, and Venatari aren't the best anyway. And if you take bigger units, you still need 3 with the shields for 4. You still need 3 with the shields for 5. And you can't afford to, again, you're in that same position. So it gives them a potential, and bearing in mind that Custodes is going to get shot a lot before they get into combat. It could be an option, to be fair. It could be an option.
Yeah, it's a relatively subtle adjustment, but quite a significant one.
Yeah, but I like it. Yeah. That is cool. And then something that I didn't even consider. So for the purposes of the Legio Custodi special rule, is a unit treated as a Nemesis unit if any of the specified characteristics has been modified to a 5 above. For example, using Reach or Space Force Bestial Savagery provision. The answer being no. And I personally would have assumed that to have been the case and didn't even
I think
consider
it's a
that
good
it
one to have
wouldn't
in an
be.
FAQ
But
because I wouldn't have been able to call
technically
which way that would go.
could be, yeah. Yeah, I think the Nemesis bonuses are quite powerful, so that's fair enough. Nice and simple one for those. I don't think, having looked through that, I've got many more issues with the Liber Imperium, but it could change, particularly on the Calidus, for sure. All right, Liber Astartes. Some of this is going to represent like Legion Saber strikes can take 4 Saber missiles.
What could you do
there we
before?
go.
Just take 2
That's
for
in
you?
both of them. 2
Right.
or 3, I can't really remember now. Page 58. Should we have a look? Should we look that up? Man, look stuff up in book. We could have 2 missiles. So we've gone doubled up to 4. Means you're putting more and more points on a front armor 12 hull point 3 hull point. I mean, move 16 inches, but yeah, that's cool. You can have up to 4 Saber missiles. Lovely. I'm sure people are celebrating with great joy. Crimson Paladins. This one's almost for
Well,
you, isn't
indeed,
it?
and I saw at least one of the groups I was a part of was generally quite happy with this, and that it was again a small move, but it makes a difference because previously it was all, now it's majority, which means you don't get knackered when you took guys with assault cannons or guys with or the leader, the exemplar, with his perdition spear, things like that, things that meant they couldn't take the shield. Doesn't just knacker the unit's ability to do this. Now it's majority.
I mean, technically, it wasn't even all. It was reduced the result of all to wound rolls made that target a model with a Coriolis pattern short power shield. But you don't target models; you target units.
So this is only this
so,
is just meaning that the bonus now rolls over to one.
It just clarifies that you just need to have a majority in there. Which is again, yeah, you're right. It's probably the sensible way to do it, which is cool. Reducing immortals get breach charges. There we go. Nice. It's good for them because the Iron Hands need a bit more help.
Please direct all your comments to Greg directly.
If a right of war or other ability requires units to be designated or selected at the start of battle before any units have been deployed to gain a special rule, are these units designated before an independent characters are able to join the units? Yes, because independent characters are individual units by themselves. Absolutely makes sense. Which is good, which doesn't, and designers note is basically remember that they're a unit, so you can assign it to them as one of their units. Retinue squads are single units because they join to them. That's fine. That's cool. Simple clarification. If a unit has a note on its entry that states it gains an additional attack for having 2 melee weapons, is this in addition to an additional attack granted by the core rules for having 2 melee weapons? No. I think this is Dreadnoughts where it wasn't.
Where it's written there,
clear.
Weirdly, it sounds blindingly obvious. So for some reason, it's not
But
as
it's
clear
not
with
as
the Dreadnought,
clear
but
with the Dreadnought.
it clearly applies in the Dreadnought's case. So useful to have. But that makes it sound.
Absolutely. But that's also for future reference for anything where they miss anything off. So it's not necessarily a bad question
I agree.
to have in
I
there
think it's
either.
entirely reasonable to ask the question. This next one is more significant.
If a unit that is limited, yeah, sure. If a unit that is limited, not exceeding a certain percentage of your army's total points, such as a Primarch, takes a retinue squad, is the retinue squad and any dedicated transports purchased for them considered part of the value of that original unit for the purposes of the total of that unit? Yes. Now this has caused a bit of people are like, oh,
Quite
really?
a few people
And
have
I'm
got
like,
annoyed about
yeah,
that.
because the retinue is purchased for the character. In much the same way, like if you bought Aos, is it the Aos Dios, Dawn's thingy? In the old game, you had to pay, old edition, you had to play like 3,250 to be able to take Dawn and the Aos Dios, and the same for Perturabo and Tormentor, because they come out of that
Yes.
selection. Although when they're put on the board, they are clarified as transport vehicles.
It's true, but it's in the case of some of those higher cost elite units. Just staring companions for the Lion, Iron Circle particularly for Perturabo, although you can't take all that many of those.
You don't have to take them as retinue. That's the
companions
key.
you do.
Companions you do, but not. But also, it's also a balancing mechanism.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Like companions are really good. Like just staring are really good. And do we want more and more of this game to be about Spartan with a character with a huge unit that nothing you've got can touch in combat becomes a negative game
and
experience?
That's fair enough. Yeah, I agree with that.
Potentially. So yeah, so I don't
just
have a problem with that
makes
at
it a
all.
bit trickier. People want to run their Primarch with the cool unit, and they can't unless it's in a massive game. But then that's entirely appropriate, isn't
it? But they can in a lot of cases because most of them don't count as retinue squads.
Yes.
Or don't have to count as retinue squads.
That's why I'm saying it's this kind of this idea, isn't it? It's the narrative aspect
so
of it more than anything else.
I don't 100% think it is.
Okay.
I think there's often something else involved in that because you can usually work a narrative way around it. So yes. Okie dokie. Alfarius.
Oh, so we're on to Hereticus.
Fleshbane. Oh, Hereticus, yeah, we are done. Alfarius. Basically, he's immune to Fleshbane, but that doesn't. Again, he's hits caused by weapons with a Fleshbane or Poison X special will gain no benefit when rolling to wound and are resolved using the standard rules. Special, I have a strength of 1. Essentially, they only work when he's the only model in the unit. Which again is sensible because you don't target, you can't roll to wound him specifically, you're rolling to wound. This is exactly the same as old edition when Vulcan used to run off from his bodyguard unit because he halved the strength of all powerful weapons, but not when he was in a unit because you aren't targeting him specifically. So again, that makes absolute sense. Otherwise, that's quite a big bonus to add to a unit as well. And Primarchs don't need that much help, frankly. But hey. There's only a few more questions. Are the following 1,000 Suns units treated as having gained the Psyche unit subtype through the cult ability and Magnus, blah, 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 blah? Yes. Which has basically cleared up that they are Psychers and made some other rules slightly easier for them.
Yes, I need to go in and have a look at a bit more detail of that because I didn't see the significance of that hugely.
So technically, they're not Psyche units, I think, is the problem. Let me just try and remember exactly how that works for them.
And are therefore not eligible to gain a psychic discipline.
No. I think that's
unless
that might be right. That's part of it. But also, I think they just because they are. What's the? So it's the psych. Where are we? Blimey, there's just these books are so big now, aren't they? All models with a character and psyche unit subtypes must select one model. If a unit includes more than one model with a character unit subtype, then all those models must select the same upgrade for the special rule. Cult Arcana. All models with the infantry gain the Psycho subtype. It's not a use. Are the following units treated as having gained? So maybe Sekhmet. Okay, so that's an interesting one. So I obviously don't play these guys. Infantry, heavy psyker. I see. They've got the psyker subtype. Yeah, so maybe they just clarified that you're not getting. You are stuck with the disciplines the cult have.
Which I think that makes sense. Yeah,
It's fine. I might have got this wrong, but this is where I've not played any Thousand Suns in the new one, but it's kind of says, and sometimes with FAQs they are kind of repeating some obvious stuff as well. So I could have researched that one better, but it seems straightforward enough on that one. If a right of war or other ability requires units to be designated or elected, it says the same. It's the same three questions because it's the same book for parts of it. So not a huge amount, but that's
still though, it was the things that were pointed
decent.
out were good to know.
Indeed. And then we had a solar auxilia. Have you looked through the extra units?
As I'm not a solar auxilia player, no, I didn't.
No. So there's a couple of things, like the solar
What I
Baneblade, I think it is, or the
generally heard
Stormblade.
was there. It's cool that they put it out and that they exist, but the things in it are not spectacular.
Yeah. So the Baneblade, Stormblade are the same points as the Space Marine ones, but with Ballistic Skill 3 rather than Ballistic Skill 4. And they weren't, points wise, they're not particularly effective in the Space Marine one, let alone the Solar Auxilia one. However, sometimes I do think people forget that the other options in the book can and should have an effect on the points you pay for other stuff in the book. Like when you've got an army that can be shed loads of Lehman Russes, maybe having another big tank, maybe there should be a points cost associated with that. Not saying that specifically in this case, but those are things that can be taken into account. Like in Warhammer, we always used to have the thing. It was like, oh, that unit's really expensive for undead, and it's like, yeah, but that's your one unit that does that in an army that's not designed to do that. Therefore, you should be paying a premium price for that ability. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's nice is they've named things like the Solar Auxilia Macarius Heavy Tank Squadron, although technically is not the Macarius wasn't around at that point. It's just for ease of what models are people using and represents X unit, whatever's used. What is nice, the Carnodon's back. Certain people will be happy with that. Siege Tank Squadron, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, lovely. Use lots of stuff. The expanded units is not something I've really touched on with any of my stuff, to be fair. But what are nice are the Davenite Lodge Priest and the Expeditionary Navigators. So Traitor and then Navigator can be either. They have the Militaris Attaché rule, which is a model with this special rule may be included in an army with any faction as a non-compulsory HQ choice and may never be selected as the warlord. So faction means, when you look it up, Space Force, Thousand Suns, Solar Auxilia. So these can be used in any. You can have one of these joining your Marines, if you will. Now, if you're narrative, you might have to come up with a reason that is. If you're gaming, it's because it's good for whatever you want.
There's nothing locking a Davenite Priest other than the narrative.
Heat Traitor.
Where?
Davenite Priest. Where is it?
Traitor. You're right. It's under special rules. Yeah, you're right. That's where it is. I was assuming it was going to be just linked to the faction, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
Well, indeed, logically, you're not going to have one of those running around with a loyalist unless it's in some kind of chains. But
yeah, he's interesting. So for 50 points, he can heal wounds, or 1 wound per phase. Psychic check to do it. Leadership 7. He's only got 1 wound.
No,
don't want to fail that. But if you know you're going to get a Primarch into a big brawl somewhere or something like that, you could be running up behind.
Well, and also, how many times have you heard people say, "Oh, it's that"? Well, I had my guy was on 1 wound remaining, and did this, and this, and like just that extra wound on there could be quite handy.
Potentially,
50 points.
Yeah, I find with things like consoles and stuff, the amount of times they die to instant death weapons is makes it irrelevant. But if you are suspecting that your Primarch's going to be facing up against other Primarchs, like getting that wound back, you could technically get that, and it will not die in the same turn, and get 2 wounds back is a huge swing. Expeditionary Navigator, deep strikes within 12 inches, roll an additional d6 when scattering. Yeah, cool. If they roll a hit, they still roll a hit. And he's got a force template with pinning, but force doubles your strength, so it would go to strength 4. But it's a pinning template, do lots of hits. He's only got 1 wound as well. Bit risky to force that through.
He doesn't look as immediately as useful as the Davenite priest.
No.
But...
Well, to be honest, I think realistically getting to bring that 1 wound back. How many times you actually get to do that? It's probably about as many times as you get to stop a deep strike within 12 inches of you. They're 50-point models, which independent characters, which in itself is potentially useful for accepting challenges, things like that. They have, say very niche potential uses. But I'm sure you'll find the odd little thing that can be done with them as well. But they can add to a narrative, particularly. And they made the models. Like, it's cool. Like, I don't think over these are gonna. I'm sure someone will come up with a way of telling me that one of them's broken. But it's is what it is. I mean, that Davenite Lodge, I suppose. Things like if you've got a big Terminator unit and you end up, you're going to be facing a lot of small arms fire, potentially. Or I tell you what could be useful actually, just things like Just Aaron, or not Just Aaron. Is it? Oh, who's got the Iron Hands with they don't instant death on 8s, strength 8, and he's strength 9, 10s. But stuff that
hands or a death guard,
blast cannons aren't gonna. Yeah, it's one of them. I can't remember. Where it's already hard enough to get through them. That spending 50 points to risk, like getting that 1 wound back here and there, or Galvor back, or potentially. But I mean it's 50 points.
Yeah.
It's almost like I've got 50 points left. I can put one of these in.
And that's what I like about them. They're cheap enough for that, aren't they?
But hey, yeah, as I say, the models are out there, and certainly if you're creating a narrative, that could be quite good. Although, why a navigator will be running around? I mean, technically, you could run around with your knights. Probably get killed off quite quick. But why they're necessarily running around with a bunch of Space Marines without a decent story reason? Who knows? But yeah, I'm glad they got it out. They added all those things in. I really hope, like, we're getting to the point now. What we got? We've got a demon PDF to come, and then I'm not sure we're getting a militia PDF. If that's all being tied in, but either way, within 4 or 5 months, I would want to see. I want to know what's coming campaign wise or book wise, because I want to see the books bringing some of that stuff that's in those expanded volumes in, or new stuff as well.
I get the feeling there's going to be a few things that are going to start. There's a few things they've put in expanded items, or otherwise. I look at the termite and things like that. There's a few things that you sort of think that's a bit odd that they've left that out of there, or otherwise. And Andy Hoare has mentioned it in some of the exemplary battles kind of intros, or I think it might even have been these, to say, "Oh, we've put it here so that it can be used until we release something else, if we do in the future, and we'll update it at that point." And you think, that'd be great. Looking forward to those when they come.
Well, yeah, you've only got to look at the fact that some legions don't have, like, they hardly have any of their own unique troops that aren't in those. To kind of expect them to come in books down the line. But we're getting to that point now where it's becoming important that happens. I say we've still got demons. Hopefully we get demons before the end of the year. Not long to go.
That might be tight. Well, we'll see.
Might be tight. You never know. It might be a Boxing Day drop. Just a happy Christmas. Have this. It wouldn't surprise me either way. I'm not expecting it, but I can hope. And we are looking. Yeah, we're definitely kind of that. I think that's the last thing that we know about, really specifically, that they're dropping. And we mentioned it last episode. Like, at some point now, you need to tell us something that's happening. And maybe in that January LVO reveal, we get like the picture of the first Heresy expansion book, whatever they're going to call it, narrative, Warzone, whatever you want to call it, and we do get. I'm trying to remember which Legios have got all their stuff. So Ultramarines.
There's a lot of extra units with Ultramarines there because they had quite a few.
Yeah. So maybe it's Calth or whatever, or it's, I don't know. It doesn't even have to be Calth. It could be Planet Zebazod, and it's Ultramarines versus whoever, and they're like, cool. We put those in there because we are changing them slightly, and we are going to do them like this, and we were waiting for them to have that official kind of release structure before we blew your mind with them.
It will be interesting to see what the format is going to be, whether it will be a sort of Titanicus style campaign book that has a couple of legions in it, or whether they do a codex style release going forward.
I think if you look at Necromunda, where the release structure was get this out, like build up different, like, the problem is you've got 18 legions. If you did codexes to start with, then someone's going to be last. And that's without demons and militia, auxilia and custodes and sisters and knights and mechanicum. If you're going to follow that path, even if they release 4 a year, you're going to be 6 years down the line before the last person gets their book. So I think if you follow that Necromunda thing where they expanded the lore generally, and then at point X went, right, we've now got enough to bring everything into a single book. I suspect it would be something more akin to that. I don't know what kind of scale, but Adeptus Titanicus is very much set up for, like, all the units are there, so you can focus on 2 or 3 things, moving forwards. Or do they go something more Blood Bowl-y? Potentially.
It doesn't feel like the
I
right
wouldn't have thought
fit
so, but
somehow.
No. I suspect it will be more like Necromunda, where they expand in a wider platform and then focus in down the line when they have enough to say, here's a book with all your stuff. I'm not 100% sure we'll get individual codexes
just because
like
of the
that anyway.
Logistical reason that you said, which is what makes me think you
quantity.
might put 2 or 3 together.
It'll be in a book. You haven't got the 40k levels of kind of production and speed. What I think you could do is do battle zones and then have 3, 4 legions, 2 from each side in a battle zone book as a more
which is what I think of as the
list.
Titanicus model, because you had 3, 4,
and then
more legios in each book. But
yeah,
they haven't got anything like the detail.
And then you could have your
in Heresy.
No, you could probably still end up with your Liber Imperium, Liber Hereticus, because of the limited nature of what they would be. Like, as Liber Imperium, Liber, I'll call it Hereticus, so not Space Marines for that one. Whatever title you give to it. And then having generic Space Marine book plus campaign book X, because there'll always be enough generic Space Marine stuff, because you don't want to reprint that every time.
Tedious.
So that would be a more sensible way of doing it. Generic Space Marine book, Imperium armies that don't fit within the structure of Space Marines, traitor armies that don't fit within the structure of traitors, Mechanicum as a separate entity potentially, with knights folded in, and that covers pretty much what you're all
then
what
you
you're doing there.
expand on those, as you say, with more and more esoteric things.
Yeah, it's
interesting.
Yeah,
and we've got one more. We've got one more
potential.
exemplary battle to come. We might see that before the end of the year.
Indeed. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? And then we're into 2023. Exciting times.
There is a certain heresy product, not 28 mil, being suggested on the rumor mill in the distance there, but who knows whether that will be.
Not again.
Yeah, every year.
Not again.
It's got to come round on an annual basis, otherwise.
Yeah. Do you think whilst they're going, oh, by the way, here's another map from the old world, and then 2 weeks later go Battlefleet Gothic?
Oh well, I heard Epic.
It sounds. Oh, no, we're not. We're not ready for
I
Epic.
I think you'd have Battlefleet Gothic before you had Epic.
I think you'll have the old one before you have either of those.
But I mean, it's just in terms of how these are going to go.
And I still think I think we're going to get a big announcement of the old world this year, because they've said something about, they've hinted that, and people are like, oh, it's going to be the old world, and I'm like, I think it might be the announcement of the old world for next year, potentially, like 24. But either way, I still haven't built my vampires, let alone put any paint on them. So yeah, I think the old world before Gothic and before Epic. I mean, people have been saying Epic's coming since they did Titanicus and then AI, and it's like, well, still a lot of other stuff to do.
Epic though before they did, say, 2nd edition Titanicus?
Oh yeah, I think Titanicus received its match playbook, which I think pushes the idea of 2nd edition Titanicus back away, much to my disheartenment.
Titanicus and certainly Aeronautica do seem rather quiet.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a Titan. We had when was the Wolf?
It was
the summer, wasn't it? The Dire Wolf.
We've had weapons.
Yeah, I think we'll be looking at
ground weapons and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. The other one. I think we'll get another Titan next year. I think you've got to look at the Rapier or something between the Warhound, something at scale 7. The Direwolf's not scale 7. The Direwolf works well for helping out Ember Wolves, but there is a silhouette, a size gap. There is a space there in the scale 7, which I think would be good for the game. But yeah, I don't know. I think, I would want a 2nd edition, the ability to then review knights and things that don't necessarily just need tweaks. So it's not a major thing. It'll be a 7, a 1.1, if you will.
A terminology,
but yeah, and collating it all into one place and all that jazz. But yeah, I can't see Epic happening for a little while.
I would have thought I could see Gothic happening before that.
I don't know.
If it's a space indeed they want to get into.
It's a big ask. Oh, I think if they thought they could make money off of it, they could do it. I think they could do it AI style and not really support it a huge amount and just let it kind of run, not in style of game, but in style of release. You go, here you go. Here's some stuff. Have fun. You crack on. We're enabling you to do it with our toys. Epic would need a big release.
I feel like that's why I think Epic's a bigger ask than Gothic.
I'm also not sure that it would be heresy.
Gothic?
No, Epic.
Well, Epic traditionally wasn't, but the rumours rattling around are that it is. But of course, how true are those?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of rumours. I could see it starting with Space Marines. See, the difference is the Titans are already out, the planes are already out. I think to make Epic really work, you would want Orcs or Eldar, because Games Workshop will only release it with 2, because that's what Specialist Games Design does, is only give you 2 things. I think you should have at least 3, maybe 4 factions available at launch. And I think if you had Imperium, Eldar, Chaos, and Orcs,
I mean, that
would
would be
fly.
huge. Yeah.
I think if it's just Imperium versus Imperium, I think it would lose kind of energy quite quickly in the fandom. I think don't get me wrong, there'll be pockets of people who'd be mad about it, and the heresy community, that'd be great. But I think they would need Epic to go beyond that.
The other thing with Gothic, if you did something similar, because there's a similar argument with Gothic, because actually Gothic is the easier release that you could get away with 1 or 2 ship kits that build a whole range of different classes, and you're away. Arguably, 1 cruiser kit, you could have a pretty good game with it as like that: a cruiser, a battleship, and an escort. Rocking.
Oh yeah, the old plastic Chaos kit built 3 cruisers, 1 heavy cruiser. The Murder, Slaughter, Carnage, and then the Hades Styx. Sorry, yeah, the Hades was the big one. Yeah,
there's loads of stuff you can do, but I can see them doing that. However, there's a version 1 and a version 2 very popular video game, and that's all set in 40k. So I could see them doing Gothic before they do Epic.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at AI, I think Gothic would have to be released in a similar style to AI. I think, and to make it successful, and even then, or with all the races that are available, people were still like, I'm not getting involved until I can play as Necrons. Necrons are here, fine, I can get involved.
They don't have chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think Gothic would need to be something like that, and then build up. And the thing is with Gothic, you could do it where it's released on a smaller scale, and then a few years later put out a second edition, which allows you to go bigger, which could work. I don't know if they would do that, but Epic needs to be Epic. Epic needs to be large armies.
Stuff. You can't have that. It's a much harder start.
No. It is. It's a lot more. There's a higher investment point, and I just wonder if you keep it marine only, I think it has the potential to hurt the launch and therefore not fly away. I think you need something alongside them, and even if you just started with Space Marines and Orcs, and you had Chaos and Eldar following. It doesn't have to be everything for those factions straight away, but if you could have a decent
quite a bit,
selection
to cover it, but yes,
of that stuff,
because
you do, yeah. But yeah, that's also quite a big game for a specialist games design game to do it that way. So whether they would be able to or not, so maybe it is just Heresy Epic, which still needs. I mean, if it's only Space Marines, I'd be disappointed that you don't get Solar Auxilia.
Well, it's where Solar Auxilia would look amazing. I mean, it would all look amazing. That would everything Epic there would look brilliant.
Yeah. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it is too much of an investment for that, because the team that would be needed to do 40k Epic would be a lot bigger. And one thing you can see about Specialist Game is they're very much willing to say, we'll launch it with this, and if it's successful, we'll let you have a bigger budget, and we'll keep doing that. And I think they've gained confidence in what they're doing. The company have gained confidence in what Specialist Games Design are doing, but they will always, the bean counters are there to keep things ticking over as they like it.
It's not a business.
So, it has to, not just sustainable, it has to be successful and sustainable. You can't just be sustainable, because it's not just money; it's time that can be spent doing the other stuff. So it has to be more than washing its face. It has to be competing with other game lines that Games Workshop make, because otherwise those people could be making those games. So it's an interesting one, because again, then how big is specialist games design getting as well? The more games they release, and obviously AT and AI aren't the quickest of release structures, but Blood Bowl's ticking along. Necromunda is going at pace. Yeah, all crazy stuff. But I say hopefully we'll see from LVO at least. What's that?
Yeah,
It's only a month and a bit away now.
It's late January, isn't it? It's 20. I was thinking
Late,
yeah,
23rd, 24th ish,
yeah.
26th, 5th, 6th. Sorry,
yeah, that's true. They'll probably be saving a fair bit for that, because that's the first big show, obviously, first big show of the year.
Yeah, and then it's only 2 months till Adepticon. After that, and then it's only a month and a bit till Fest.
That's interesting that Adepticon and Fest are so close together.
Anyway,
Oh,
it's 2 months, I think. Fest is
yes,
in May.
it is.
Yeah, so yeah, it's best part of 2 months. I mean, but there's something on all the time now. Like June, July, start of August is Gen Con, middle of August is Gen Con, and then you've also got Nova. Yeah, it's just constant.
Right, exciting times. Good to talk to you again.
And you, sir, will be back in the new year.
Looking forward to discussing all the exciting things that have happened over the Christmas break.
Indeed. Diamond. Cheers. Thank you for making it to the end of the second part of this episode. Apologies it's so late. This was recorded well before Christmas, but sickness. A lot of people have been very sick over Christmas. I hope you are all well. Sickness, baby, being ill, unexpected dodgers, all the Christmas stuff. You name it, it's all got in the way. That has meant this episode's been delayed in getting out. That has meant that the first episode of 2023 will be delayed in getting out. Fingers crossed. We are going to turn a corner. Been saying it a few times. I know that, but it's hard. Anyone with young kids will know it's hard. And with both of us having young kids and moving houses and changing jobs and a number of other things that have been going on, it's been particularly tricky to try and get these episodes out. But I'm not going to go on too long. If you have feedback, please send some in. Greg@theimperialtruth.com. We don't get a lot. We never have done for the show. But please do consider it. We'd like to hear from you. You can also comment on the show notes on the show thread on Facebook at Imperial_Truth on Twitter if you want to tweet us as well. We've possibly, due to all those timings and stuff, we're changing around what we're doing. Warhawk's being pushed back again, unfortunately. But we will be having a look, maybe a little bit back at 2022, maybe a little bit forwards at 2023. And again, I'll be putting out a thing to ask for questions as well. But we've got some plans. I want to get some other people either back on the show or on the show as well. And we're going to try and sit down and say, fingers crossed, we can start to settle into the rhythm. Although saying that, I've got Adepticon coming up in March and a trip to Australia as well in April. So it's not like the end of this quarter is not going to be busy, with plenty of other stuff going on around that as well. So we will definitely try our best. But hey, that's what it is. That's the Imperial choice, isn't it? It's never been the smoothest running thing, and that's in part because of me. So, hey ho. But I'm going to leave that there. Again, just we're going into 2023 now. As much as arbitrary dates and all that New Year's are, I really hope that it's a good one for you, as good as it can be, and it brings you a great more joy than it does pressure or sadness or stress or whatever, anything else. Because we always get a little bit of that, but we just like to hope that the scales weigh in our favour. So fingers crossed for you all. But until next episode, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.